And I can remember the government coming in and taking over. This was beautiful farmland. They came in and they went to the farmer. They told him what the place was worth. They gave him a check and told him to move out the next morning. They took over the property. And at night you could see they would burn the barns and the houses. Nothing was saved. Everything was just leveled.
That's the way it was in 1942. Affected were 149 landowners on a 7,200-acre site in the towns of Lewiston and Porter. They had no choice. Out they went. Their property taken over by Uncle Sam. Something for the war effort, they were told. The site became known as the Lake Ontario Ordnance Works. A TNT plant was created to make explosives for World War II, but stayed in business less than a year. Then a brand new agency took over, sold back some of the land, and ended up with less than 200 acres at its present Lewiston site some 20 miles north of Buffalo. It had a strange name for its time, the Atomic Energy Commission. It looked like a large farm from the air, buildings and silos, including one huge tower-like silo. But the men walking around in their bib overalls and farm hats were scientists. The code name for their top secret job was the Manhattan Project. They were responsible for the storage of radioactive residues left over from the processing of uranium ores during the development of the atomic bomb. The additional radioactive residues were brought to the site for several years after the war, rotting in a 165-foot tower, buried in the ground and sealed in reservoirs. The name of the site and landlord have changed. Now known as the Niagara Falls Storage Site and the property of the United States Department of Energy, what remains is the same, 20,000 tons of radioactive wastes. The site is being cleaned up, the tower coming down, and its radioactive wastes and residues buried in protective trenches for the present. But the 25-year long-term management is of concern.
We would like the material completely removed, but because of the extreme cost to the government, and we are the government, we are the taxpayers, are going to wind up paying for it eventually over a long period of time, we've settled for what we refer to in the environmental impact alternate C, because 4C, because alternate 4C has the removal of the most dangerous material, and then leaving the remainder of the material on site and monitored.
The internationally known engineering firm, Bechtel National, has been contracted by the Department of Energy to clean up the low-level radioactive waste on the site.
What we're trying to do here is to collect all of these contaminated wastes, both the residues and the contaminated soils, and bring them into one central location in a controlled situation. And the way we're doing that is simply by excavating the contaminated soils, bringing them to the waste containment area, which is a prepared area. We built a clay dike all the way around this waste containment area.
Explain the process of getting the materials out of this tower.
The way we're doing that is with a slurry mining operation. And this essentially involves 4 pumps and about a mile of 4-inch steel welded pipeline. The first pump is a high-pressure water pump, and that takes water from our supply pond near the tower into the tower and discharges it at a high velocity in order to make a slurry out of the material. The second pump is actually the pump that removes the residue out of the tower. It pumps it out and down to the bottom of the tower, where a third pump picks it up and transfers it over to our storage facility in the waste containment area.
Several public hearings on the issue have been held in Lewiston relative to the long-term management of the radioactive wastes, questioning the intent of the Department of Energy and the role of Bechtel National.
Alternative 4C, off-site storage of residues at Oak Ridge / long-term management of Niagara Falls storage site, is, I believe, the correct alternative for our problem.
This community would like to see all of the radioactive materials removed. Possibly there are those in the federal government that want all of the radioactive materials to stay. In effect, we see 4C as an acceptable compromise.
Now, you find that to be an error in this draft statement?
Will you listen to me?
or will you not listen to me?
Sir, I've got to understand what you're saying.
All right. The title, I'm reading you the title, which will be self-explanatory. Why are the new risk estimates 20 to 200 times the old official estimates? Now, the old official estimates are what are used in that draft environmental statement. And they're wrong. They're not just a little wrong. They're off by a factor of at least 100, maybe 200. Now, that means that all your calculations are wrong.
Are these wastes true low-level radioactive wastes?
Everything we have on the site is really classified as a low-level waste.
Does it ever appear to you that this site will one day be decommissioned?
That was our wish. As long as there's material stored on site that has some contamination, I doubt if it'll ever be decommissioned. As long as you have the Niagara Falls site with some contamination or some material that's contaminated on it, somebody somewhere along the way is going to look back and say, hey, there's a place there, maybe we can bring some more contaminated soil and store it there. And our position was that the environmental impact that will buy the program of 4C, which was removal of the dangerous stuff, but we will accept no other material to this area, and that has to be a condition that they set forth, that nothing else be ever brought here.